Welcome back. Well, we continue with our coverage on the deadly anti-tax protests in Kenya. The country's President William Ruto talking tough against demonstrators, deploying the army to stop what he's called treasonous acts. The death toll as a result of clashes between protesters and police now rising to 13. Let's get you some analysis on the story. We're joined now by Kenyan political analyst Mark Bichachi. It's great to have you on the program. Thanks for coming on. Perhaps let's start here. Have we ever seen protests of this nature and of this extent in Kenya, particularly in recent history?
No, we've not seen protests of this nature and of this scale. We must remember that many people are looking at Nairobi, which is the capital city where much of the media was focused on. But these protests happened across the country and even more, even in the president's backyard of the Rift Valley. So this is quite unprecedented in its scale, in the sheer number of people who showed up, and in terms of how historic and momentous it is. The protesters breaching the cordon around Parliament, going into Parliament, and then the scale of killings. Official numbers lie at around 13, but there are many who are claiming that the numbers are easily in the upper near 100 figure. So it's quite a dire situation for Kenya right now, even as we wait for the president to address the nation in the next 30 minutes or so.
And what are you hoping to hear from William Ruto in a context where his comments so far have called protesters criminals?
Yes, he's called them treasonous criminals. He has literally allowed the police to murder quite a number of them. So it is difficult really to predict what he's going to say because he reports just reaching me that he has refused to sign the bill and has sent it back to Parliament. But then that begs the question as to why he then had to take so long in agreeing to the demands of the demonstrators. So the hope is that he does calm the country down. He does say that he's going to listen to the people and he's going to withdraw the military and the police from harassing people. That would be the best case scenario. But given his speech yesterday, one wonders whether he's going to be able to actually to step down and to not be as angry as he seemed yesterday.
I suppose it's fair to say, Mark, that even the president himself and his government may have been surprised and taken aback just by the scale and the anger of the protests.
Well, it is for certain that they were quite surprised. Over the weekend, they were speculating that these protesters have been hired. They were saying, even a member of parliament went to the extent of saying that the young people are being sponsored by the Illuminati. It was quite hilarious, to be honest. But the truth is that he does not know, and the government does not even know who they need to talk to in order to achieve some semblance of negotiation. So he is in a difficult space. I don't think that many in government understand even how to deal with this particular situation and to deal with the young people who, based on what I'm seeing on social media, are still quite angry and have moved away even from the bill itself and are now talking about the presidency and asking themselves whether they really can stand a Ruto presidency any longer.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, at what point is the decision even taken during protest action of this nature to deploy the army? At what point is the decision taken by police to fire live rounds on citizens who are protesting something like a cost of living crisis?
You know, it's our constitution and the expectation of the law is that none of the military and the police actions yesterday unconstitutional. None of it is allowed by our constitution. So when you look at what has happened and how they've attacked their own citizens, the president is clearly acting outside the law, and he is trying to subjugate the protesters by instilling fear because, well, for the first 2 days, there were only 2 or 3 deaths, and now he has allowed many people to die. So the hope in that action is that now the protesters will be scared. Now parents will tell their children to stay home and not demonstrate. But what the feeling is in Kenya is that many people are now angry. The country is nearly seething with anger because of the speech he gave yesterday, which many thought was rude and unfair in terms of how he was talking about his own people. And then two, they're angry at the deaths and the fact that he does not seem to really care about the lives of Kenyans.
Certainly. And the mood in the country, you've already outlined to us, Mark. We're waiting now, as you say, for the president to address the nation. At what point do we talk about whether his presidency is at risk, or is it already?
Well, you know, if you look at the things that keep a president in power, which is the mandate of the people, the legitimacy you have with the people, and of course, the instruments of power and force, his legitimacy and his mandate from the people is highly questionable. There's no part of the country that I can think of where there were not mass demonstrations. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who came out just in Nairobi to demonstrate. So he has lost the popularity of the people, the popular support of the people. The people don't trust him. They think that he has lied to them too much. So it's quite difficult to see, even if he holds on to power by hook or crook or by using the military, it's difficult to see how he's going to win the people back.
Certainly, Mark. How do we also read, in the context of what's happening in his own country, the decision on this deployment in Haiti?
It's quite cacophonic. It is confusing. Many people are calling it almost schizophrenic because you're sending police to Haiti, and it's a war zone there. It's taken over by gangs who have military grade weapons, and yet you're deploying an army against your citizens who are unarmed, who are not even able to respond to the police, and now you're bringing in the army. So many in Kenya are questioning the wisdom of this choice. The Law Society of Kenya has gone to court to stop the motion. The parliament tried to hurriedly pass the bill that allows him to release the military onto Kenyan streets, where there's still doubt and discussion as to whether there was enough quorum in parliament to get that done. So it is quite a strange time. It was a strange decision, no doubt, but they themselves are unable to explain what they're doing to Kenyans. It's quite difficult now, to say the least, to understand what is driving President Ruto and what is giving him the logic of his actions.
Certainly, and it'll be interesting to hear just what William Ruto has to say in that address, which is coming up in just a few moments' time. Mark Bichachi is a political analyst. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon.